Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good wherever you are in the beautiful world. And welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me again today the beautiful Lira Nikolaev. How are you, lady?
Well, it's summer, planting, going to be going kayaking, hiking. Terrific. It's just beautiful. Life is
I'm
good.
jealous. I got to tell you, as you can see, I'm
I
all wrapped up and buttoned
know.
up
Not
here.
jealous there.
Yeah, exactly. I've got even my cat sitting on my lap, which is most unusual. There, you see, she doesn't usually sit on anyone's lap except when it's winter and it's cold. So there.
That's so sweet.
Anyway, yeah.
My
Oops,
son
sorry.
on the window wanting food. If you hear some scratching, it's the cat. He wants some blood out.
Yay! So, wow, really good to have you back again, and I really enjoying our conversations that we've been having. You know, for those, if any of you still need to have a little bit of intro to Lira, she's a overcomer from the Ukraine and was um, tampered with, if you will, by the Russians to become a double agent as a child. So she's a seer as well, and a lot of her memories and things have started coming up again. And she also has the gift of seeing. So she shares with us a lot of her experiences as well as what she sees in the spirit world. So it's been amazing. So for those of you who haven't seen her previous interviews yet, I want to highly recommend that you do. And we'll just ask Morné, for convenience sake, if you can just post the links if you haven't seen it
Yeah,
yet. Sorry, my cat's getting all antsy here now.
and I was
So,
doing
Lira, so wonderful. We're going to be talking about all sorts of interesting topics again today. And one of my current favorites, and has been on my radar for a long time, is Area 51. So,
uh-huh.
tell us about Area 51.
Oh gosh. So this is um when we moved to US, I think somehow US claimed me also where they could use the already broken down parts of me, mind, consciousness, and then program that, used whatever Russians have done, the way they have already programmed me, trained me, tested me, and then they added to it. Come to find out, I am naturally a very, very creative person. That's the first thing that people will tell you about me. And so I love my biology, science, physics. The first time when I saw this, and I need to go in steps, and I need to tell you, all of you, that when you're working with the Lord, with the Holy Spirit, He reveals to you what He knows what your body, your mind, and heart can handle. So He will reveal just a little bit at a time. So this was about 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. We've disconnected me with the Lord from the heavier entities, evil entities. He revealed the 5 parts that the Russians programmed me to do. And then one of the nights, it means not just shortly after that, I was going to bed and again praying, charging my atmosphere with the names of God, Bible right here, anointing myself. And as I'm still praying, I see Lord Jesus holding his hand out, and I see a little pond, almost like a puddle with frogs coming out of it, cat cattails there, and then Jesus catches out of that puddle comes out a little scientist. It's me in a white lab coat, and he catches like that, and then the image zooms out, and I see Area 51, and I was familiar with that area because not passing through it, because we lived in Utah, and then when you're traveling to California, which was at least once a year, you'd be driving kind of along that path. So I knew exactly what it was when I saw it. And then I looked up the lakes, the ponds, 2 lakes that are around there. I'm like, that's exactly what I saw when Jesus pulled me out. And I thought that was such a bizarre thing. I had no connections with the military, with the Area 51, never had anything in me that gravitated me towards it. And all of a sudden, there I am. I'm like, Well, thank you, Lord Jesus. You clearly know what I'm doing. You knew that you needed that. Phenomenal. Thank you. The following year, as I was going back to some other parts, disconnecting them and then releasing them to Jesus, I said, well, what are we going to do about this? Can we go back and save the other souls that are trapped in there, like my soul was? Part. And what he did was he showed me the lab that I was working in. We go into the lab. It's 2-3 other technicians that worked under me. There was a supervisor. She was cruel. So I see the counters for that lab. I see the drugs behind. And then on this side, there are different tanks with different creatures, various sizes. There are cages with animals. There are tiny little cages with insects. It's all various animals that I'm working with. And I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm like, okay. And we started testifying to the people in the lab, the technicians, that Jesus loves you. You don't need to be here. You're trapped, you know. And then we open a portal to heaven. And to order to open a portal to heaven in the area where it's like this, all the ley lines are like this, which are evil because they're using that area, you know, to do the nefarious things. There was a specific area that Jesus picked out for this portal, and it was like a tent like this, up, to heavenly throne. And that's where I saw only a dozen souls that came up that desired the freedom. They understood that they were trapped, and they got out of there through that portal. And I said, like, Jesus, there's so many other people from previous parts where there were thousands of the souls that were freed when I was being freed. Like, why is there only a dozen? Because so many people, souls, hybrids, cyborgs they're so trapped that they don't know who they are, what they are in that area. They cannot make the choice that, hey, I've got this freedom here. So anyhow, Jesus said that this area is going to be left open, this portal, in the future. When some souls do come to realization that there's freedom, they will come out. But so after that, he zoomed out. We zoomed out on the whole Area 51 area, and he showed me there's Area 51, like the space above the structure. There's Area 52, there's 53, 54. I worked in the Area 54. Just these layers that go on under the ground. And then if you're looking at the mountain range, people who have been there, the facilities, and then right in front of it, there's a location, and it would be more towards the west if you're looking at the map. It's a huge hole, about 1/4 of an acre long, a bit less height. It was concreted entrance to the center of the earth. And that's where it was hollow. It was so deep. Like when you stand on the edge of it, which I did, was Jesus, you make a sound and the echo just keeps going and going and going. It's like the entrance to the pits, almost to that hollow earth that Jesse and some of the other people were talking about. And I saw ships, various aircrafts that were coming out of that location. So they were going, Area 51 basically has the capability like this of exits and entrances to the hollow earth, to the center, and then of course to the various space locations, realms, I should say. Like it's the hub for everything.
Absolutely. But it's interesting because you and I were having a little conversation off air about that as well. And I was just saying, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about Area 51. Because, you know, me, I don't have a religious background, a military background, any kind of background that relates to any of this. I am, however, born with a gift of being very intuitive. And as I've sat and observed over the past 2.5 to 3 years that we've been having this channel, you know, it's been, after a little while, I was just able to wipe things out of the way and say, nah, you know, for what wasn't working, and that's crap, and please stop, you know, that for me it's quite easy to discern that. The one thing that has always drawn me and will not let me go is the military. And now, as I said, I don't have a background in the military at all. Neither does any of my family or my father. My grandfather was in the war, Second World War. That's about it, right? So it's really intrigued me. And I've gone more and more as I've tried to find where the answer lies. Because all of this zappity-doo, all of this stuff, I know it's just a ruse. It's deflection. And even a lot of the child transportation is, and not that that's to be taken lightly, not at all, but they use that in the way that they currently do, like, for example, with the celebrities and stuff, that one's a pedo and that one's this and that one's that. They still use that as diversions. So what's become very clear to me recently is that there is a shadow military. As well as a shadow government, there's a shadow military. And these guys are trained to do things that we can't even conceive of, right?
That's what I'm going to talk about.
Fantastic. So then we're obviously singing off the same song sheet. And my dreams, I also dream a lot. I get a lot of intuition, and especially lately, and I'm seeing things, and what you're saying resonates very much with what I'm saying, and it's taking us to me all the time to Area 51. And that's one of the stuff, I know that in our conversations with Jesse as well, we've started doing the deep dives into the military bases. But I was actually sent a video the other day. But why I am more prone to believe it, because it could be a bit of a psyop as well, but I know it's not because of speaking to people. What they really do there, one of the things they do, I'm sure there's a lot more, is they literally take in the DNA of creatures from pre-mud flood times, and they're mutating it with all sorts of demonic things. And they are growing these creatures like spiders that have 1.5 to 2 meter leg span, right? People have seen this. People have spoken about this, right? There have been people that have spoken about this. Certain doctor that's worked there. These huge, big. Someone was saying these 6-foot dragonflies. If we're listening to some of the stuff that Jesse was talking about, was the sharks, how they've modified the sharks. And they're these creatures that have got these crazy body parts on. We know that the Nephilim giants exist and the dragons exist. There's enough proof now for us to understand this stuff is occurring. And my opinion is that these are the things that are going to be unleashed on humanity when the full... At the end, when these guys have realized they've got, because the Luciferians know pretty much that they've lost. They know they're on their way out. Spiritually, they know that, because when our consciousness rises, they know that. So now, of course, they're pulling out all the stops. So this, in my opinion, is going to be one of the things that we need to be aware of, that this is what they're doing. They're creating these huge things, and these spiders apparently emulate human calls, and they kill humans. They eat humans. It's crazy. So
Yes,
it's truth stranger than fiction. And I mean, if you had told me this 3 years ago, I would have like, hey man, you've been reading too many Flash Harry comics. But now it's like, hang on, this is real. This stuff is real, and we need to be aware of what's been going on.
Yeah, and that's why I'm telling you this, the way Jesus has revealed it to me, because if he was to show me, and I begged him actually, show me what my job was, because with other parts, I asked him what the job is, I see what my job was, those avatars, but not this one. Instead, with this one, the first 2 years, what I saw was my soul part was by God the Father's feet. It was just beautiful golden ball. My spirit man was with the Holy Spirit, like entangled in one. And then my body, Jesus held my body physically tight like this. And he said, I went to the cross for this, so you would not have to see or experience this ugliness, this evil. That's all he said. So I had to drop it. It was from Jesus. I'm not going to question it, but I've always wondered, and he knew I wanted to know, but it wasn't until my mind was prepared that, no, this is the depth of evil is real. It's there. When I was ready, that's when he revealed more to me. And you mentioning that in the last days, they will be unleashing all of these wild creatures. Yeah, that lines up with Revelation. I think it's either seal 4, number 4, or number 6, where the wild creatures will be going after the humans. Completely lines up with the Bible. And you know, the evil ones, they will do, if Bible says it, they're going to make sure they're going to do it, you know, follow through with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lines up with it perfectly. All right, so.
And I mean, sorry, just what I was about that spider thing, because as I think I mentioned that I did see a video of that, of some dude that had been in there. And it's like these spiders are, you know, these souls that they steal, or this demonic whatever, they integrate that. So there's like some kind of a demonic spirit that embodies that creature as well. So it's obviously got super AI intelligence as well, because they would have AI'd it, no doubt, along with the original DNA, because the original DNA they would have therefore amplified, right?
Yes.
And so to make it like the supersonic creature, it's hectic.
That's exactly what me, the scientist, did. So I'll explain to you what Jesus showed me. And speaking of the spiders and the sharks, one of the locations or the main location that Jesse mentioned is in Maryland, kind of down the street from me. And my daughter, I know she was taken to those various dumps. She thought she was having dreams, but after Jesse started talking about the specifics and how the sharks were indeed hybridized, whatever the word is, and the spiders, that's exactly what my daughter was describing in the dreams, including the spiders. Like, I can't push that away, toss that aside either. I know my daughter has been through it, and I've been, one of my avatars, like I said, has been creating them. So next time that I went, Jesus and I went back, because normally, like I said, I just sit and I wait on the Lord. Wherever you want me to go with you to get more healing, that's what happens. And this time around, we went back to the location, and he showed me the lab. He showed me the rest of the lab, the little lab, and then behind it or in front of it, where the ceilings got tall, like 3 stories. The cages were showing, the tanks were showing, the smaller cages, the cages for various birds, creepy crawler creatures, fish, and of course the different animals. And then he showed me in the chair. My job was to sit in front of, whenever the animal was brought in, I sit in front of it for a very, very long time. And my job was to read their frequencies. What the height, like we would agitate the animal to see how high the frequencies go. And then if the animal's at rest and at peace sleeping, how low the frequencies go. So, and I would document all of those frequencies. That was my job. And let me go back about, it's not me, okay? It's that other freaking avatar scientist. What upsets me was they actually used my name. This one was named Lira. And my Lira is like from the Lyrian constellation, the Lyrans. I don't know if that meant something to them, why they kept that name. I don't know. And then with the frequencies, me picking up and reading frequencies, in Russia before, well, like right after the hospital, somewhere around the same time, like I said, I was 6. I went to a very strange music school. And again, I did not think about this until Jesse mentioned them. How you sing, the choir, the way I tested, they told me that I had to play the violin. I wanted to play the piano, but I had to play the violin because I could make the sounds, the notes, right? Hear them exactly. And then for like I said, strange school. It was small. there were only 4 violinists at the most. The choir that we had there, less than a dozen kids. Like if you have a school, you're going to have more people than that, right? Very small school. And there were almost as many teachers as there were students. That's another strange thing. And the amount of time that choir classes that we had, where we had to synchronize with each other, was, I would say, obsessive overkill. Like when a child is taking an instrument, you as a parent expect them to learn this instrument. I don't care about the choir. I mean, yeah, you need some choir, maybe some piano, but some orchestra, but you really want your child to concentrate on that one instrument. And at first it was how our frequencies, our notes came up, how we could sound together, working together and listening to the frequencies of those notes. And then it was learning the violin, the sound, like having it come up from within you. And then we always had a partner. It was a boy in my case, again, to how we could play together, you know, go in and out with the notes. That was
what's interesting. Yeah. What Jackie, hello Jackie, haven't seen you for a long time. Music was a form of programming too, which is interesting. So
I cannot handle classical music. Don't play it.
Yeah.
Don't. And then there's another.
Wow.
He's a composer that just passed, a gentleman, and you'll find him in the Baptist churches. He wrote like up to 1,000 songs he has a patch from cancer. But the sounds that he used in most of his songs, I think in minor keys, and that would, every time, again, my husband knows not to play it around me. Every time I hear the song, I feel like somebody's burying me alive, somebody's choking me. And they all love it because to them, when they hear his music, the frequencies, it calms them down. And in my mind, like, no, it's putting you to sleep. It's putting a lid on all of your emotions. You're not being free, but you're being suppressed. So it would bother me. It bothers me a lot, those particular frequencies. I don't know. But like I said, Americans jumped on this talent. And so I would sit in front of the animal creature and I would document it all. And then, and I did this with every bird, every insect, fish, flying thing, a great list. It was very meticulous. It takes forever. And then I would pair them up together. Which frequencies, which animals could go well together, whether it's like a frog, can you marry it with a bird? Gorilla, I'll get into it, with an eagle. Like, so various, I don't want to say gifts, because the animals were born like that, right? They were born to leap. They were born to fly. The dog was born to bark. But you could take some of their DNA, CRISPR, right, and combine it all together, cut some out, put theirs in, and then create a creature. So my job was to make sure that those frequencies line up, just perfectly work together, including the DNA. So that's one thing. And then you...
Sorry, is that then... Once you've aligned those frequencies and the DNA, they would then kind of splice it and then create some creature from that.
Right, but it was in a bank, if you will. It was just a list of things, of what potential combinations, right? So then after that, we also had to customize them, and I'll get to that in a second. After that, he showed me, Area 51, 54 for me. They had a machine that could take a creature and they could magnify, just like Alice in Wonderland, right? You go from small to big. Like there was one butterfly that we created for a super soldier, and we blew her up 100 times. So like what you're saying, the huge soldiers, the huge spiders, yeah, they can shrink them and we could blow them up. So, there's many reasons for that.
Hang on, when you say blow them up, you mean enlarge as opposed to explode?
Scale them up.
Okay.
So, and you would see this in many movies. Why didn't the heck? There are many reasons why Alice in Wonderland became a classic, right? They used that there. There are many movies like Tanya Shrunk the Kids. There's one with Matt Damon where they're creating this whole society where they're shrinking them down, and they're put I think in Arizona or California in the movie Desert, a bubble, this utopia that they've created for them. They volunteer to be shrunk down to save the earth, right? And
Wow.
they're showing you, like I
And
said,
isn't that interesting how they're doing that? Because now, I mean, not too long ago, they were talking about how the people need to become shorter on this earth because we consume less if we're shorter.
really?
Yes, I read that. It was actually one of the headlines not a few months ago. Some stupid American politician speaking about that.
That's so funny because as Russians coming here into US over the last 3 decades, we all laugh at it. I laugh at our children because the children who were born in Russia and ate that food versus the children who were born in US, like my brother, he's 6 feet at least, and I'm 5'2", so is my sister. Like all the kids who were born here in US and have eaten American food, they're all larger. The parents, the
Wow.
siblings are not, but they are. I'm like, they're
Wow.
gonna have to stop eating American food. They're gonna have to start tweaking our food again. Just nuts. The things
Wow.
that they do.
Wow.
Sad. Okay, so where was
Wow.
I? They
You were
were
talking about the kids being shrunken and the whole movies where people have been
mm,
shrunken, to consume less,
and
stuff like that.
yeah, so you should pay attention to some of the movies before you watch some movies. Let Holy Spirit tell you what it is you're gleaning out of it, some truth, because Satan is a show off. He's going to want to show what he's doing, what his powers and abilities are, what technology he has, right? That's one thing. So you can learn a lot. And then second thing is like our handler, my daughter's handler, JB Neal, he used to watch some cartoons, and he is in the government, right? Astrophysicist, satellites, and the military programs. And the reason why he watched those cartoons was, and they were from China, because he was, like I said, even in the cartoons, they're foretelling you what technology they have, what technology they're using. And then, well, you need the info. Knowledge is power. Yeah, just another
Wow.
way to glean that knowledge. So anyhow, the movies do confirm that yes, they have this equipment where they can shrink it and they can make it scale you up. And that's when Jesus pulled me up the very first time out of that puddle. I was a tiny little thing because the frogs were my size, and I found it so weird. And then kind of put the whole thing together. The whole lab, that whole floor, area 54, it's a shrunken version of it, not full size. And there are many reasons for that. One of them is just pure space. That's a lot of huge creatures. They're talking about elephants and gorillas, right? It's nice if you, when you're working with them, keeping them on that level, and when you need them large, then you enlarge them, just keeping everything smaller, tidier. And then the sounds that they make, the animals, when you're using or abusing them, that's pretty horrific too. And when you keep it all shrunk down, it's not as brutal. So you have to, the sounds are bad. It's just, that's the one thing that I could not handle, is me doing evil things to the animals. I mean, they're innocent animals given to us for pleasure, and they're doing this to them, using them like that, abusing them. So the next thing that he showed me was one way of using it. You have the super soldiers. This was another room next to the lab, and you had do you know what trip chairs are? A lot of survivors will refer to them to trip chairs. It's like a dentist chair, and it's got all the equipment that they will attach to you, right? The monitors, the lights. You sit back and then you go to places. So this one, and it had to be a super soldier. So let me explain that too. A cyborg, which is created with man-made materials, versus a super soldier who has been souped up, if you will, right? They've added things to him to perform better. When you have a human, when the embryo happens, that's when the spirit, Amanda Weiss refers to it as Neshma, right? The light, God's light is in you. And it's, if you have that light, then all of those frequencies can run through you. If you, the cyborgs that don't have that light, those frequencies, like from the animals or the somebody else's consciousness, it can be inserted, but it's easier to manipulate them when you have that glorious light, God's light in you. So using super soldiers was also a key. So the super soldier lays there in his troop chair, not too far away, several yards away from him. We put a tiger in a cage, and then at his feet, on the bottom of him, we threw in snakes and we threw in scorpions, and then the whole tiger was encased in glass, so nothing could crawl out, and then the noise. So the reason why that had to be done was because the super soldier, I aligned that super soldier's talents, training talents, his frequencies with this tiger's frequencies together. I knew that they went together well, and whatever mission he was on, he needed all of the abilities of the tiger when the tiger was aggravated the most, right? So we kept, during the mission, we kept the tiger aggravated by these snakes and scorpions. So he was always screaming and roaring, this tiger. In the meantime, his frequencies were connected to the super soldier. So now the super soldier had all of these abilities of the tiger, the wildness of the tiger, and then he had his military training, and it was all together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally get it. Totally get it. Yeah.
And that's wrong on every level.
That is so hectic. As an animal lover, wow. I mean, I hear these things, you know, we've spoken a lot with Jesse at length, and a lot of the stuff we haven't even spoken about on air yet, about what happens with the animals and what, you know, the extremes they go to. And as you say, they're innocents, you know, they are completely innocent. And this is the thing that we do to them. Wow. Wow.
The next thing that we did was, this was a room next to that room. Again, tall ceilings. There were tables bolted to the floor, little kiosk, and a CO, commanding officer, brings in a team of 5 people. On that team, there was a woman about my age, and a man about my age, all super soldiers. A young guy, and then 2 teenagers, 1 boy, 1 girl. And they were assigned a mission. And my job was to create creatures for their consciousness for them. Now, this was wild. This was totally wild. So what I did was, I knew what their talents, what their training was for all of the super soldiers. And I knew what the mission was. And the mission was, they were to capture, it was woods or the jungle. There were tall trees, and in the tall trees there were 2 creatures, and these 2 creatures were messing military missions up. They were taking them out of the sky, or whenever the soldiers were doing something there, these 2 creatures were taking them out. But the creatures were not paying attention to the animals, because they were in the forest. Like, who cares about, we only care about these humanoids. That's what they were programmed. So this mission, this team that was in Area 54 was supposed to take them out, but they couldn't be human looking. Otherwise, the 2 creatures who were on the trees would catch them, right? So my job was to create the correct creatures for the conscience to be put into, and then these creatures would go on this mission. Let me explain that some more.
Yeah, I get it.
They're laying in their trip chairs. The conscience goes out, and it's in this other room. They're all floating, if you will. Their conscience is floating in the room. And I've got these 5 creatures, and they're supposed to pick the right creature. Like, I lined them up just right. They knew exactly what creature they belong with. Like, it was natural for them. The frequencies just went so beautifully with their conscience, talents, and training. It's just crazy. But one of the creatures was the male, about my age. I created for him, we took a gorilla, and then we added wings to it. So the job of that one was he could leap. First of all, he had the mass. The mass was important to deal with on this mission with these two creatures, to like overpower them with just his mass. And then the wings helped them to get up to those trees. First of all, the gorilla can't climb, right? But then the wings also helped him if he had to go from one tree to the next tree to get them. So that was one for the male super soldier. And then there was so for that one, we used the platform was the gorilla platform, because majority of that creature that we created was mainly gorilla. The other one was for the lady my age. We created, I have no idea what to call it. It was legs of an alligator, body of a python, but it was dark in color. And then it had wings, larger wings of a bat. And the job for that one, we used the platform of a python. It was easier. There was more structure, if you will, platform again, to build, to add all of the other animals to it. And the wings were of a bat were a whole lot bigger, of course. Like I said, they used that machine to scale it up. So this, her job, were this python, snake, dragon like bat, I don't know, was to leap from the tree to onto the creature, because it can crawl up the tree. It can grab the creature. It can like fly a little bit, like almost like a flying snake, and then it would twirl around that creature that they were supposed to take out, or a human. I don't know what it was. Those two things, to strangle it. And then the gorilla would come in, it would knock it down to the ground. I'm sorry, there was also a butterfly that we've created. The butterfly was the first thing that was let out on the mission. And this butterfly was humongous. It was quantified, scaled up at least 100 times. Now, she was sent out to get attention from these two creatures that were up in the trees. So the two creatures were always constantly looking at what's in the sky that they could take out. I don't know who they worked for. What the bottom line is, the butterfly was supposed to come across their way, mess with their CPU, with their thinking, right? And then once it messed up with it, then the snake, python would jump on one of them. The gorilla would come at the other one. They would work together, knock them off the tree. And then as they're flying over the tree, they would be pinned up by a hedgehog. And I created two of them. And the hedgehogs were scaled up. And it was for the two teenagers. They were not, didn't have as much experience with missions like this. So we figured that for them, just being a hedgehog who moved quickly, you know, they were like a cushion, but not a cushion. It's a cushion that pinned them up to catch these creatures when they fell down. So they were capable of doing that. And the hedgehogs were humongous. And it was at least the size of the back of the gorilla. I mean, enough to catch this creature. So it worked very well together as a team. You just, one takes their attention.
So were these creatures that you physically create them, or was it energies that were now working through the bodies of the super soldiers, the actual physical soldiers?
No, the animals were specifically created, custom designed to go along with the conscience of the super soldier. Okay, because of the two creatures were not paying attention to the animals, but only to the humanoid bodies.
Yeah.
The military thought the best way to deal with them was to send in creatures, but with human conscience, but with other animals' abilities. So you can make the most out of the creature that you're creating, most agile, whatever, whether you needed the strength, right, of a gorilla, the likeness of the butterfly, or the spikes of the hedgehog. Like, we did the best that we could, make the most out of every animal to create this creature. These creatures were not, we couldn't keep them alive for too long. They were just there because there's just too much mutation. And then scale them up and down, it was just too much. So they were only enough for that one short mission, and that's it. And it did take a while to create them in the lab.
So they obviously, were you using the DNA of the normal natural animal and
Yes,
then amplifying that? So you would take the
yes,
DNA, pretty much like they create avatars of you. So now
mhm,
they'd create
embryo.
avatars of the animal as well. So this was an avatar of the
Mhm.
original animal as well.
Yes, they're embryos, right. So I mean, the lab was extensive, and the various chemicals and machines that were there was just huge. And the time that it took, like, you need a lot of patience with all of that. Like, some of them, it goes through the process where you're dripping that specific cells to start growing that embryo, and then adding, tweaking the DNA in there. It's just a very tedious process. And then you're kind of waiting for them to grow. So, I mean, the military is just, they're also impatient. I mean, you guys need to know where your tax money goes. It goes
Well,
to crazy
exactly.
projects like this.
Yeah, and lots of it. And this is what I talk about, the shadow government, because really at the end of the day, most of these things are to gain control. It's for control, and it's to gain power, and it's to see who can create the best. What do you call these things? Avatars, or I don't know.
I now refer to them, or I'll line the things up. I refer to them as beasts. That's what Bible talks about, mentions beasts. I mean, beasts like a dinosaur? Come on.
Yeah.
Octopus, what do you mean? Now I know what it means. There's nothing, I want to say there's nothing natural about them, but in some ways there is. This is what I've always wondered, what does the Bible mean when it says abomination? Like, God, you're doing the abominable, you're doing things that are not natural. It's not how God created. I mean, the lion will kill the deer to eat, right? And it's not sin against him. But yeah, we're sinning against them by creating this vicious creatures, beasts. That's not natural, and that's sin unto us. We're doing it knowingly. And just
absolutely. No, I mean, this is a complete abomination of God's natural laws, but we know that that's really what these guys are all about. They want to create that abomination. They want to take everything and just make it so depraved and so disgusting and so full of fear. But again, I was, and I actually said something about it in the arrow drop today, but I'm going to just mention it here. I watched a video, just a reel this week, of some youngster interviewing an older guy, but this older guy looked just like a lizard, so he probably knows what he's talking about. And what he's saying is that there are 21 reptilian star systems just on this side of our galaxy, right? And what they do is they take over the other planets, right? And when they do, they enslave their inhabitants, but not in a way that you turn them into obvious slaves. It's done in a very unobvious way because they need the slaves to be productive. So they use the complete negative manipulation, exactly what we're doing here, And, what he's saying, so the guy said to him, well, are the reptilians running this earth? He says, well, look at the banks, look at the churches, the whole religious industry, the schooling, the judicial system, everything, right? All the big industry is run by the reptilian star system. And what he was saying was, then how do we get away from that? And what he said was so profound, was that, well, the one thing that we have to our advantage that they don't have is the ability to raise our consciousness. The reptilians are not able to raise their consciousness. And that is why they're forever trying to dumb us down. So they will steal what they can, and they're going to perfect that, right? Because they're very, very smart. They're very clever. We know everything about the dark world is all about deception. So obviously then that brings me to say, well, the only way that we are going to rise above this, and I always say this, Jesus is not coming to save you or anyone else. Jesus came here to show us how to save ourselves by raising our frequency. And when we raise our frequency, we automatically raise our consciousness. And that consciousness, because also when we're looking, I did an interview with Mr. Fox on the organic portals. I want to say, if you guys haven't seen that, you should see that, because he talks about half of earthlings being of service to self and the other half of service to others. And those of service to self only operate from the lower 3 energy systems in the body, which is all about money, power, greed, sex, all of the stuff that we're seeing going on around us now. So the way that we shift that is to really start acting from a place of love. Do loving acts, because feel, you see, it's all about feeling. So it's about feeling better, getting up and doing something different, enjoying nature, spending time with your animals, spending time with your kids in a non-irritable way, going out for a walk around the block, whatever, to start raising our consciousness. And the way we do that is to just start doing and focusing on things that are more positive for us, more loving, more constructive. So it's not a huge shift we have to make. It really is just taking our eyes off there and moving it to there and doing things that are more healthy, because the minute that we do that, they lose the grip and it's game over for them. And it's already happening. So all I'm saying is the way that we are going to do this collectively is by each and every one of us raising our consciousness. And that way we raise our frequency. And as I said earlier on, you can imagine the reptilians. You know, I'm a spiritual alchemist. We turn lead into gold. So you imagine that reptilian fist full of lead, now trying, as you raise your frequency, it's like you become a cloud. It's like beautiful, white, fluffy, bouncy cloud. And the lead fist cannot hold on to that. So it automatically separates then. That can't touch you when your frequency is of a higher vibration. And then we start acting in a loving way. We start doing more community oriented stuff. We start reconnecting back to nature. We start understanding that love truly is the greatest gift that we have to give to each other. And not just say, I love you, I love you. Act in a loving way. We have to act in accordance with that. Do things that make a difference. Act in a way that makes us feel better. And therefore, the ones around you. Kindness, really, kindness at the end of the day is what's going to win this war. Nothing else.
Yeah,
Nothing else.
We made me think of 2 things. One was what evil does is divide and conquer. So they know the whole you carries the most energy, right? Your whole soul, all of God's glory that's in you. But when it's subdivided into these different parts, then you're not as powerful. So they can use you more. But when you're whole, you're not going to let the evil in. You know better. So that's one thing. But you mentioned in lead. A while ago, I was doing a study, and sadly, I cannot tell you all of it because I just didn't finish doing the research. There's something there with the number 5 and the 1, Area 51, and lead. Something about the lead that's there that they're using it as a platform. I don't even know how to explain it. You can do your own research. But lead is connected to that area. The air, some frequencies, something. I don't
I'm sure
remember.
it would be lead.
It was a
The
while
heaviest
ago.
point of the earth, with all that dark stuff going on there. I mean, that must weigh so heavy. That must be so heavy in energy volume, really.
Yeah, and there's more. There was a lot more. Enough to do a show. I just didn't. got busy, didn't finish the research. There was another area there in Area 51. It was not Area 54. It was another level. And in that level, you mentioning the different realms, I call them realms, right, in our universe. And this was, it was a military, there were creatures, okay, that were used by military on various missions. And the way they looked was like a dinosaur, a tyrannosaurus, no, like the one with short hands, heavy legs. We'll go with kangaroo, okay, where the legs are heavier, the thighs are beefier, and then the body's smaller, and the teeth are very, very sharp. And they were grayish, brownish looking, about 3 feet, no more than 4 feet tall. And they could just leap. They would leap, and then they would just chomp everything. So when the military was on a mission and they needed somebody to go in and just mess with the other creatures or soldiers, get in the way, they would employ those. Like, get them off balance, not off balance, off their mission, just mess with them, be in their way, just chomp them down, slow them down, basically. That's what they were used. And they were storing them in this other humongous room, almost like bunk beds, like up to the ceiling, which was 3-4 ceilings high. They created the shelves, and they were all sedated. And then when they need them, they put, actually, they seal off this huge room. They put in some kind of gas in there, and they would wake them up. And then after the mission, they would corral them, slowly gas them down, have them climb into their beds, and then gas them more to sleep. And then bring them back to life, wake them for the mission, and then corral them back. Just one room of creature soldiers. But they look so different. They look completely different. They weren't what you think of a gray alien looking, maybe somewhat that size, and they weren't an animal that we've seen at all. They were just a different creature. I have no name for it. The military did use them like that. One way I wondered for a long time, like, how in the heck did I get there to Area 51? Like, what was it? Because 11 years ago, when we moved to our latest house, there was a lot of witchcraft that was done on this property. It's a 100-plus-year-old property. I had to do a lot of land cleansing. If you ever want to do a show on that, I got some stories. So this land already had iniquity, number one. Number two, the handler who kind of handled me and my daughter, he was connected to all of these military programs, which were, of course, we can call them aliens if you want for the show, right? Was involved with that and the different spacecrafts. So there was a portal open there. And then I think I opened a portal when I typed in, out of curiosity, I downloaded, it's called Zeta Talk at that time, 11 years ago. And I had tabs open on my phone. And the more tabs I had, the more beings I was seeing in the house. And they would pin me down at night. You know, it was scary, all of that. And I also, at the same time, one of the nights, I was taken to the ship. And I remembered one of the survivors describing a similar type of spaceship where the floor was mezzanine. There were tables screwed into the floor. There were orange handrails, almost like on a bus. There was a check-in window over here. And then when it was your turn, you check in and then you were taken back. And it was the Grays. They put me on the table and there was lots of lights there. And then that's all what I remember. When you walked into that spaceship, there was actually a movie star. He wasn't a guard, but he was kind of there to calm you down so you're not scared in this new place, spaceship and the Grays. So they were just there to almost entertain you, just like you did in all the movies. I found that was interesting. So I thought, well, maybe it was all of that that opened me up to this Area 51, to be a scientist there. The Greys did something to me, and between what the Russians did, but God said no. He said when we came here to US as immigrants, US, the deal was that US gets every sleeper soldier and they do with their bodies whatever they want to do. With whatever programming the Russians already put in us, they can, do their own thing. So they just tapped on whatever training testing was done on me, and then of course the breaking down, and then they just added more to it.
Wow.
They use you, once they have you, they keep going with it. There's no stop.
Yeah, it's like, it's the most insane thing. And, we're hearing these stories from several different sources that, this stuff exists. It's happening, and it's happened to people. And there's a lot of kids that have been child soldiers, that have been sleeper soldiers, that have been programmed to wake up at the end times now. And I do believe that this is where a lot of the chaos, not just with the military, right? But I'm even talking about this whole transgenderism thing that's being pushed right now in the way that it is, that's all part of this end time stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I found interesting? I read an article as well, that a lot of this whole push for transgenderism, but really in the extreme way, that a lot of those kids actually have certain levels of autism,
Yes.
which is very, very interesting. So, obviously people are saying in a negative way, that's a mental disorder. I told you they're all mentally. I don't look at it like that. I don't like what's going on. I can tell you that's for sure, but I don't necessarily blame the people, the kids. I blame the system that's created this outlet for this generation to be as confused as what they are. Anyway, it's very interesting. These are interesting times indeed. And, as I always say, believe nothing that you read on mainstream TV or whatever it is. Even in our supposed truther communities, you've got to really practice discernment. And as what I always say, guys, they can't, I'm going to repeat this. The way that we end this is for you to raise your frequency. I don't think a lot of people know what that even means. And I'm going to tell you very simply what it means. If you are constantly unhappy or fighting with someone or in a dead-end job and you're whining your head off, but you still work with the animals and you're still a good person, right? That doesn't change that. I'm talking about, how do you feel when you spend 10 minutes alone with yourself with no cell phones, no TV, no YouTube, whatever, when you're just sitting with yourself? You will know what type of situations are you attracting into your life. Is it always drama? Is it negativity? Look, life is life. We're always going to have our shit, right? But the question is, how do you deal with that? So if you are one of those people who's a really good-hearted person, but you are dragged into drama and chaos and all of this stuff, you are part of the problem. You are the person I'm talking to. You are the one that I'm asking to raise your frequency. I'm not talking about people that have been through extreme stuff. Very much more difficult for people who've been through extreme stuff. But it is your duty and your responsibility to make yourself happy in the smallest, easiest, tiniest way. That is how you raise your consciousness. You raise your consciousness when you realize you love yourself enough to know that it's that important for you to be happy. It's that simple. and that hard. That's how we raise our frequency. Anyway, we have, and incidentally, for those of you who don't know, just about to start running or facilitating my conscious creation workshop. I'm going to ask Morné just to put the link in there. So if you guys are interested in that, what we're really doing is we literally looking at these things. We're looking at the invisible glitches. We're working with spiritual alchemy, the sacred Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian sacred prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. That's the prayer. And we work on that premise all the time. So it really is a very, very awesome workshop. If you guys still want to sign up, let me know. You can just email me. I'll ask Morné, as I said, just to put the link in the chat there. For those of you who still want to make use of spiritual parenting month, Mother's Day to Father's Day, if you guys want to look at the SunKidz stuff that we've got out there, doing a big promotion to do the SunKidz teacher training for those of you who feel we're giving it to you at a highly, highly discounted rate, because I really do want as many people out there to get this information. So on that note, I'm going to say farewell, but Lira, is there anything else that you would like to say before you end off?
I think so. In these last days, everything that you've said, it all boils down to discipline. Like the last spiritual gift in the Bible talks about self-control, which is so hard. If you take the time to sit down, which it all takes self-control, that's a good start. It's a must, and it's it's practice. And then the second thing is to ask the Lord to give you a new spirit, create in me the right kind of spirit. I know evangelicals don't believe this, that we're a meat bag for the various spirits that do run through us. And we have to keep on asking. That's why there's at least 2 Bible verses there that tell you to keep on asking me. I ask daily to create the right spirit within me. That's a lot to say. And it confirms that you are a spiritual being with various spirits going through you. Yes, there's the Holy Spirit. You should be lining yourself up. But underneath the Holy Spirit, there's other ones. So if you've been abandoned by somebody, left by your spouse, whatever, you feel abandoned, you don't need the spirit of might to come underneath you to push you up, build you up. You need the spirit of adoption. And Bible literally throw theology out the door, use Bible language. It says spirit of adoption. And that's the spirit of adoption that comes up in you. So continue asking for the right spirit to be created in you, and continue practicing self-discipline, taking the time to ground yourself, and like you said, to raise your vibrations. I mean,
indeed,
you need that in these last days. There's too much chaos.
Yeah. Lots of chaos. And that's why the only way you're going to fight, my favorite saying is, when the roots grow deep, there's no need to fear the wind. So like a tree, grow your roots deep, stand strong, feel the support, feel the love. And no matter how much blasting and stuff goes on around you, even if you lose your pretty leaves and your hairdo for a moment, you'll be back, you'll be stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, good night from me and my little kitty cat.
Good night, sweetie.
Willow. She's upset
right.
now because she doesn't like it when I touch her. Okay, guys, God bless you all. And then we will see you again with Lira in a month's time. We will keep you updated. And take good care. Like, share, subscribe, please. And thank you so much for sharing your Friday with us. We are very, very grateful. Lots of love, everybody. Cherry vibes.